All right, we are live. Good afternoon and welcome to the Skill Up Show. Welcome to that show where we talk about parenting matters, especially for parents of young children and preteens. We like to say that the Skill Up Show is that show that equip you as a parent of a preteen or parent of a young child. So we say always, if you're a parent of a child between 6 and 13, then this show is for you. Why is it for you as a parent of a toddler? Because you do not go to war on the day of war. Sorry, you do not prepare for war on the day of war. Parenting is war. I hope you know that for sure now. You are fighting against all of the narratives. You're fighting against all of the trauma. We're fighting against all of the ideals that are out there that are distracting you as a parent, distracting your child, and fighting for the attention of your child. So if you do not position yourself to change narratives and to put the right ideals, the right perspective, and of course, the right convictions out there, then you will be fighting against all of the negatives that are out there. So, yes, you have to prepare for that journey, for that war before it is time. Welcome to the Skill Up Show, and today we are going to be looking at, as parents, what we can do to a parent's guide. Rather, we're looking at the parent's guide to creating a reading friendly environment in your home. Children who grow up with books, children who grow up loving books are more likely to succeed academically, socially. Yes, reading is a key to unlocking potentials in our children, in human beings. Reading will open your mind. Reading will open up your mind and will open up potentials and open up, opportunities and open up a well of knowledge for you. So it is important that we introduce our children to this life skill. Reading is an entry point to all other forms of learning. So, this is another reason why children need to be introduced to reading as early as possible. My name is Mary Beth Shima, if I've not introduced myself already, and I'm the founder of the Parenting Through Mentorship Academy and PTM Resources. Of course, I am also the proud matron of the Mastermind Circle, a peer mentorship and accountability group that we run for young people, young children, school age children, and preteens. If you're here with me today, and this is your first time on the show, do let me know that this is your first time, and let us know where you are joining us from. If you are watching on YouTube and you still haven't joined this vibrant community, you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, then it is time to do this. Just give me a second. 1 second, please. All right, sorry, the system was running out of battery, so we had to plug that to be sure that we don't run out at the middle of the session. Thank you very much. All right, so yes. We are looking at how a parent's guide to creating a reading friendly environment in their home. Now we are trying to talk about why it is important that our children even read at all. Why do we even have to introduce reading in our environments? If you are in this session right now, and you are on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel right now so that you can be a part of all that we do here and you can be a part of all the amazing resources that we have on YouTube. If you are watching on Facebook, why don't you also go ahead and Tag a friend, yes. You have a friend that should be here, tag a friend. If you're not following us on our timeline, on my timeline, why don't you go ahead and also follow so that you can be a part of the conversation? We are always having conversations right here, so you can be a part of that conversation. I'm doing a bit of housekeeping. Why don't you go ahead and invite a friend right away while we are at it, so that your friends can also be a part of what we do here. I always like to add that if you're a parent and you have a circle of friends, you have your relatives, you have your loved ones, and they are not on this journey with you, they are not learning the same things that you are learning, then you are making your journey even more difficult. You will sabotage yourself. So the best thing to do is to make sure that those who are a part of your support system, your spouse, your friends, your tribe, people who are part of your support system, also learning the same things that you are learning. This is the only way that we can guarantee that when we are not there, right, or the people will be here also walking this journey as we are and supporting our children as they need to be supported. That way, it's easier for our children to actually have friends who are learning the same things like them. It makes it a lot easier. It still takes a village to train a child. It still takes a village to train a child. So, where is your village? What is your village? All right, so let's get right into the crux of the matter for today. Think about it this way. Maria Montessori actually says that when children are young, when children are between the 0 and 5, right? 0 and 3, 0 and 5, the children, their mind is highly absorbent at this phase of their lives. So your child is absorbing everything in their environment. Your child is absorbing everything that is happening in their environment. So think about the fact that you read books to your child. Or let me ask you, what would you rather that your child absorbs in your environment? If you can read books, you can talk about different characters, you can talk about different scenarios, you can talk about different locations, you can talk about different emotions, you can talk about all of these amazing things. You can use rich language, you can use all of this in your environment. And if Montessori is right, it means that your child is soaking up all of these things. You're using the right vocabulary, you're using the right mannerism, you are using all of this. You are equipping or you are teaching knowledge. You're passing that knowledge. You are doing all of this. And your child is said to be absorbing all of this because during this phase of their lives, they have the highest, they have the most amount of brain activities and brain cell development happening at this time. A lot of programming is happening at this time in their life. Your child is being programmed for the rest of their lives. And so, if you can program reading, if you can program knowledge, you can program all of this into the child's mind at that time. Let me ask you, wouldn't you rather do this? Rather than leave the child to listen to the one-off things that come up in their environment, rather than leave the child to listen to you scolding Agnes up and down the place, rather to leave the child to listen to all of the vulgarism and all of the careless language that comes out of the TV screens, whether to leave the child to come out with all of the senselessness that is coming out of some of the cartoons that they listen to. Wouldn't you rather read a lovely book or read lovely bedtime stories that have great characters, great conversations, and all of these amazing things? Wouldn't you rather read a nursery rhyme or sing a nursery rhyme to your child? Wouldn't you rather sing those lovely lullabies? Wouldn't you rather do or ensure that your environment is highly stimulated with the right content? Now, this is why reading should be a thing in your home and it should be introduced in your environment as early as possible. Now, it is no news if you've been following me. It's no news if you are a parent walking this intentional journey, that you are indeed your child's first environment. You, as a parent, are your child's first environment. You are the first environment that your child would encounter. The environment in your home and all of the people in that environment make up the environment that your child would encounter. And we already know that children or human beings are a sum total of the environment and the content of their environment. So, what your child is hearing, what your child is seeing, the environment, that space, and all that is in that space that your child encounters is going to form a part of what your child is, a huge part of who your child will become and who your child is, basically. So we are saying there is a way that we can set up that environment. There are resources that you can have in your environment. There are things that you can place in your environment. If only you can be intentional, if only stimulating your child effectively can be a goal, then you can actually build a solid foundation for your child to be a lover of books and a lover of learning. I said already that reading and the love of book and the love of books is actually the foundation of all of the skills or many of the skills. When your children already enjoy reading, they already enjoy interacting with prints, they already enjoy interacting with books, it's easy for them to dive into studying and researching as soon as they get into real school. So when your infants and your toddlers, when your babies are introduced to books, when they become familiar with books early, when they go to proper school, they already have the experience. They already understand how to interact with prints. They already understand language. They are already working with vocabulary. Remember that in the first 3 years of their lives, their mind is absorbing everything in their environment. And thank God you are in this class today. Thank God you are an intentional parent. Thank God that you have the knowledge that you have today, which means that you can program right from the very beginning. And so your child is 8, your child is 10, your child is 15, and you are not dealing with all the kitty kitty kata kata that you see the average parent dealing with. One teacher here, one lesson teacher there, one lesson there, another one here, one instructor here, one that, because the foundation was not right. So what we're saying is, if you can get the foundation right today, then you will not put your child in a position where the child will struggle with learning eventually. Apart from that, you will actually position your child to be a lover of learning, because remember, the child was programmed that way from the very beginning. I'm giving you plenty secrets around here. I am giving you, right? I'm giving you tips that will help your child. If you're a toddler parent after this class, please send me a gift because I have just blessed you. All right? So let's jump right into it. So I'm going to be sharing in this class with you. I'm going to be sharing in this class 10 things, right? 10 things that you can do to prepare your environment for your child to love reading easily. All right, that's what I'm going to be doing with you. All right, did I add that with books, your child can actually become more empathetic? Do you know you can raise a child who is empathetic just because you introduced them to books early? Do you know that you can raise a child who is emotionally intelligent just because you introduced them to books early? Do you know that you can raise a child with a good attention span, that has reasonable attention span compared with their contemporaries as early as possible? You can have a 4-year-old that you're able to hold their attention for much longer than an average child who doesn't read, just because you introduced your child to reading early. Do you know that you can actually have a child who is a lover of learning just because you introduced them to reading books as early as possible. Do you know that you can actually spark your child's creativity? You can actually build a child's mind for creativity. You can actually raise an inventor. You can raise a child who is an inventor, right? As early as possible, just because you had nested their curiosity, and you actually sharpened and honed it through books. See, the benefits of introducing your children to reading are far too many for you to joke with this life skill. The benefits of having children read and actually getting them to do this as early as possible. And I'm sure you've been listening to me. My early is not when they are 4. My early is not when they are 6. I said right from when your child is in the cradle, right from a day after your child is born, right from the day your child is born, if you like, if you are in that space. In fact, even before your child is born, if you like. My son's first book was actually bought and I started to read to him when I was only about 6 months pregnant. Yes, I read books. I had conversations. I read the Bible. I had conversations like I would actually not just read aloud or talk like, okay, the child will hear. I would actually address the child, and I would actually have conversations with the child even while the child is there. Science says that there is a stage right the child is even, a fetus that the child actually can hear, isn't it? The child can actually hear. So if the child can hear, please, wouldn't you rather ensure that they are listening to the right content? I'm sure you would. All right, so let's jump right into 10 things. So I put this in an acronym, okay, so that it can stay with you and you can continue to play with this acronym or continue to use this acronym, right, to remember why and how you can create an environment in your home that promotes a love for reading. I'm going to be giving you some of the examples, personal examples or personal experiences, just to drive home this fact, okay, or drive home the importance and the need. And I can say this with my full chest because I have raised and I have built readers and lovers of books and learners, not one, not two, but many. I have raised children. I mean, there isn't a young person who has stepped in my home and had gone out of my home that did not leave with one extra skill or two skills. And one of those skills is usually a love or at least the ability to pick a book and read the book from the beginning to the end. You know how some people come to your home and they're 16 and 18 and they've never really picked a book and read from from cover to cover. They've never done that. The only books that you see a lot of people have read is school books because they didn't have a choice. They needed to pass exams. They needed to pass in school. And I'm talking about really brilliant children who are high flyers and children who are top grades earning children. You can actually find top grade earning children that do not know how to read or study for leisure. So you see these children who do not know how to read for leisure. So when it comes to studying, because of whatever it is that is their motivation or whatever it is that is driving them, in many cases, that could be their parents and the fact that you are dead if you do not pass the exam. So you see all of that threat and all of those things could get the child, the child could actually be in an environment, in a school also, where peak performance is the ideal. And so the child is driven and is driven and is driven and all of that. So at that point, the child does it. But most times what happens to those kind of children is after all of that drive, or when that particular motivation or the people who cause or drive this are not present, the child just falls back because the child has not cultivated this habit intrinsically. So yes, the child can read and drive themselves, and do well academically. But most times, these children are not lovers of learning. So if there is nothing that they are pursuing, if there's nothing that they are looking at per time, these children are not open to learning. This is why in this part of the world we have very super intelligent people, but we have less and less people who are creative. We have super intelligent people, but we have less and less people who enjoy creating and building things for the sake of building something that can outlive them. So we have more and more people who are ready to pass an exam to get a position so that they can be paid lots of money. But we have less and less people who are ready to create things so that they can create an impact in the world. They can leave a legacy that can outlive them. Now, these are the real issues that we're talking about. And these issues actually begin from the foundation. So, are you ready to help your child? Are you ready to support your child? Are you ready to create an environment in your home that will raise a lifelong learner? Are you ready to create an environment in your home that will build the foundation for your child to become an inventor, for your child to become a creative, for your child to become a change maker? Are you ready to form that in your home and form that foundation right in your home by doing something this simple? Something as simple as introducing your children to leisure reading. And when we say leisure reading, what do we mean? When you read, not because there is an exam. When you read, not because you want to prove a point. When you read, not because someone is chasing you. When you read because you want to relax, enjoy yourself, and have an interaction with what it is that you are reading. Now, we've heard of all the challenges that screen addiction is posing in our environment. We've heard of screen autism. We've heard of, distraction, all right? High distraction levels, okay? We've heard that distraction management is going to be a big thing in the next few years because we are raising children who are highly distracted. We've heard and we know how children are so engrossed in their screens, whether those screens are their pantops, their laptops, their phones, their TV screens, or whatever it is. We are raising a generation of children who are fixed on screens. These screens are damaging their eyes. These screens are making them obese. These screens are making them more and more inactive. These screens are making them socially awkward. These screens are stealing their ability to form relationships and build connections. These screens are distorting our whole family system and our cultural system. The screens are isolating our children and turning them into awkward citizens and awkward people. This is it. If there is one thing that is going to combat the effect of screens on your children, if there's one thing that is going to help your child get the same amount of dopamine in their system that can rival all of that happy feeling that they get from screen, is your ability to introduce them to books. Do you know that some of us can pick books, read books, and have the same kind of feeling or the same kind of entertainment that it takes to pick a movie or to sit down and watch a movie? A lot of people that are into reading have read to the point that they actually get excited. We would gift our children books for Christmas or Valentine or their birthdays, and they are excited. They are as excited about a new book as they are excited about a box of pizza. We need to get our children to the point where they see that distraction. They see that excitement so that your child can have a free time and the child can gladly pick a book and read when they have the option of picking a book or watching a movie. Do you understand what we're talking about? So we need to create this active participation or active indulgence in reading so that our children are not just passively sitting in front of anything that is a screen and has colors popping on it, with all of the disadvantages that come with it. All right, then. So let's go. Number one, we're going to be using the acronym. What's my acronym now? We're going to be using the acronym Read Home. Did I put that together? Anyway, let's jump into what it is. Okay. What did I call? so let's jump into it. All right. So the first thing we're going to, the first way to help your children, all right, the first way to help your child love to read by creating an environment in your home for that is to engage your child with books. Engage your child with books from their earliest age. All right. Create and No, sorry. Okay, I got that now. So it's read home. All right, reading home. All right, I wrote that and I don't know. Reading home, that's the acronym we're using. Reading home. Yes. So we want to create a reading home in our home if we want to raise children who would love and enjoy reading. And we want to make that happen by creating the right environment from them. So we're using the acronym. You have to create a reading home, a home where your children love and enjoy reading. So, number one is you want to create a reading routine. Yes. So, don't just leave reading to be that thing that your child gets to do when there is absolutely nothing else to be done. All right. Don't make reading what they do when there is no power, or when they have been scolded, or when they've been grounded, or something like that. In fact, some of us make the mistake of sending our children to go and read books as a punishment. So you have done something wrong, or have taken away the remote control from you because you did something wrong. And so the next thing I say, will you leave that place and go and pick a book and read? All right, now you are not presenting book in a good light. You are not presenting reading in a good light. You are actually making reading what would happen to you when you are being punished. So that way, your child is not going to cultivate a love for reading. All right. If you want to get them to read, reading needs to be prioritized. Reading needs to be hyped, and it needs to be put in a way that the children see that it is a beautiful thing. So in our home, what we did is we introduced the stop and read system. Stop and read system is such that when it is time at 8 p.m., we stop everything. We did this more when the children were even younger. At that point where we were programming and we wanted it to take roots. So 8 p.m., everything goes off, whether it was TV or anything else. We should have finished in the kitchen. We should have had dinner already, okay, at 8 p.m., whatever, whoever. Now, and this also included everyone who came into our home, meaning if you are a young person, a child who came into our home, all right, you had to stop and read. Do you know how serious it was? It was so serious that at the time when I had domestic workers, like I had someone who worked in the house with us as a nanny or something, she would actually have to join in the stop and read also. I know how many people who came to stay with me to work with us started reading. If you know Sabi read, it's simple. You will read the book that my 3-year-olds read. Somehow you will figure it out, right? You will figure it out. But whatever it is, you will sit down and you will sit with all of us and you will take that book and you will learn to picture read or do whatever it is. But somehow we've always been, kind of lucky. Maybe I would intentionally look out for someone who had at least basic education. So most often they could read. And that's it. I could get people who worked with me to actually read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books, at the time. Oh no, my nieces or any family member who came around definitely picked books and read. And because we have a good library, you would always find something for you to read. And this is it, how it became consistent for the children. For our children, stop and read became a thing, such that you're done eating, you're done having your bath, you're done with dinner. The next thing they're doing is scampering through their library to find what book that they are reading today, or find the next book after they have just finished reading a book. So that's a good way to create a system around it. All right. Create a routine so that it is known by everyone that this particular time is the time for reading, and everybody keys into that time. That's what you do to create an environment that is reading friendly. Number two, you want to engage with books. You want to engage your children with books. Now, after reading, stop and read. We would, because usually we will finish reading at 8:30. It was a 30 minute from 6:30, sorry, from 8 o'clock to 8:30, stop and read ends. And our son will hug, and then go to his room to sleep. The kids will hug and then retire for the night, right? And so I would go in and I would read you a bedtime story. If daddy is around, daddy will read a bedtime story if he's back from work at that time. Or so it became such a routine that our daughter, even up to when she was 8, even up to yesterday, she actually, on her way to bed, she would pick a book and she would say to you, could you read me a bedtime story? Could you read to me before I go to sleep? Because that was all she knew right from when she was a baby. All right. So in reading that, what you are doing is you are engaging with books. Now, when you engage with books, we get to talk about the character. You get to talk about the character of the book by way of reviewing the book together. So at the time, we had a system where every time they read a book, we had presentations during the weekends. We would actually create, we'll actually do a part. The kids, as soon as our son was old enough, he could create PowerPoints. He would actually create PowerPoints and do a review of the book. And in 10-15 minutes, they finished doing a review of the book that they've read. We should do that, every now and then, even today. All right. In fact, we decided to introduce it fully, such that every time you read a book, you didn't just read the book, you didn't just read the book and, oh, are you done? Yes, I'm done. No, actually engage with the book by creating a system where the children can review the book, and that way they're able to talk about the character, they're able to analyze the character, they're able to do all of these things. You are preparing them for bigger things. When you do this, you're preparing them for being able to analyze situations, being able to analyze the character of people, being able to build their public speaking skills, being able to talk about what it is that they feel about a character or they feel about a situation freely. Because you have taught them how to take a subject and share their perspective on that subject by way of talking about the character in a story from the way they view that character and their perspective of that character. And this, you can start with your Cinderella story. You can start with your Rapunzel story and your Snow White stories, right, with your 1 year old, your 2 year old, and all of that. Do you know you can actually have your 2 year old review a book and you're laughing and the child is reviewing? This is what we're going to be doing with the children in the 30 days book challenge. So we have a book challenge that we run in August every year, from the 1st of August to the 30th of August. What we do in that book challenge is we create activities, like engaging activities. I talked about motivation. Children always need a motivation to do the things that they do. So I have this formula that I share always. I said a sense of, an activity plus a sense of satisfaction is equal to motivation. So when you have an activity and the child does that activity and the child is excited, there's a dopamine release in the child's system when the child does that activity. What happens is the child becomes motivated to do more of it. That's what happens with when your children watch TV. When they watch TV, they are passive engagers. They sit down and then the characters are jumping around, Tom and Jerry and all of those many characters. They're jumping around and the child is laughing and the child is excited. It gives the child a happy feeling. Dopamine is released in the child's system. So if you do not break it and you leave the child overly doing this, what happens is the child becomes dependent on an external thing, right, that he is not actively involved in. It is something else that is doing it. His job is just to sit down there and, and continue to laugh. And you cannot regulate the amount of dopamine, or because you do not even have a break in this whole thing. You don't have any structure around it. So you have your 4-year-olds, you have your 8-year-olds, you have your children binge on TV from morning to night. Okay, the experts say When there is an oversized amount of dopamine in the child's system, it begins to inhibit the brain development or activity of the brain. So excess dopamine in the system is not good. So that's why we need to, and it is led with, I mean, it is said that all of this is leading to, more and more trouble that we have today. There is also the whole talk about screen autism. So you have a child that is not ordinarily on the spectrum, but because of their exposure to too much screen, the child begins to get on that spectrum and the child begins to have developmental issues just because of too many screens. It is already known that when children are absorbed or they are too into screen, it actually delays language for young children because there's actually no real learning. The children are just memorizing and regurgitating. All they're doing is memorizing and regurgitating. There are no neural connections happening in the brain because there isn't any real activity. The child is not having to solve problems. The child is not having to think through anything. The child is not having to problem solve. The child is not critical thinking, nothing. The child is just sitting down there docile passively for hours on ending. Meanwhile, if the child was out playing, the child was out there reading and trying to, infer from the character, trying to connect the character. Why the child is doing that? The child is building vocabulary. The child is learning all of these things. There are brain activities happening when your child is actively involved in play or in anything that they are doing, right? Where they are the ones creating. So this is very key. All right, parents. So engage them basically. Number 3 is accessibility. All right. You want to create accessibility to books in your home. So you have introduced them, to a print-rich environment. You have introduced your child, right, to books, character and all of that. You have reached the point your child is excited about books. You want to keep the books in a place where your 2-year-old, your 8-month-old child can actually crawl to pick his favorite book and bring to you. When you introduce your child to book early, you realize that as early as when they can crawl, they would actually go to their particular book. The child will always go to the book that he enjoys reading. And then he will bring it for you to read to them. All right. At this point, the child, is just listening to the rhymes. That's why a lot of these books that you have for this age of children are always written in rhymes. They're always written in rhymes. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Or things like that. Big, what do you say? Papa, there's this other one. Daddy Pig said, "Who is eating my porridge?" Mama Pig said, "Who is rich my porridge?" Baby Pig said, "Who's reading my porridge?" So it's like that. So before you know it, your child begins to lips. Your child can now read. By the time they are 1, they can practically they can probably read with you as you are reading their favorite book. You will see that book they fall in love with, and they can actually lip it from the beginning to the end. Then you see parents say, my 2-year-old can't read. No, the child cannot read. The child has listened to the book. It is preparing the child for proper reading. All right, it is preparing the child for proper reading. But the child can actually follow the rhyme in the book. They've listened and they've read that book over and over again, and so the child can participate in it. Like that. It's all preparing the child for reading. All right, there's another one again. The child can actually look at the pictures. So that's why during that stage, we say, let the books be big, let the pictures be attractive and colorful, not too much like the screen where there's too much stimulation happening when they're watching the screen. The characters are moving, they're talking too fast, the pictures are all over the place. When you're reading books, it's not that fast. It is slow paced. The pictures are not all over the place. So even the people who write the book know that they don't want to overstimulate the child. So at that point, the pictures are they're bright, but they are not too many at a time. A lot is put into these things that the media, the screen, what you see on screen, doesn't encompass or doesn't embody or something. Do you get? So the child is able to. That's why you realize the books are also, some of them have texture, because during this phase of the child's life, everything that is appealing to them is what they can use their senses to understand. So you find some of those books that are pop-up books, right? Excitement, it pops up and all of that. Books that the children can actually make sound with, books that have texture, that have sounds. All of these are all intentional, because it is with these we are hoping to stimulate all the child's senses. Now, if you don't know these things, you're not introducing all of this to this child. What happens is your child loses the opportunity to have this amazing stimulation happening in their life. Hi, okay, how are you doing, man? So, these are the things, these are the issues. So you want to put the books in a place where the child can access the book. All right. Now, you want to also put in your home or in that library, your main library, the library in the child's room. Yes, you can actually build the child a little cute small library. That alone creates ownership. It is helping you prioritize reading. Remember, I said that you need to prioritize reading. You need to make them know that you see these books, it's a big deal. It's something. There's gold in books. So do that, and then you go ahead and you create a little library for your child in their room. Now you have put ownership, you have put customizing, right, to it. So the child can actually go small library, reach where the child can reach, and then pick a book, and all of that. You're preparing the child for reading, you're preparing the environment. Now you don't have just one kind of book, you have diverse kind of books. You have different genres, books from different culture, you have books from different topics, books that will broaden your child's understanding. Yes, you are programming parents in the first 6 years, in the first 5, 6 years of your child's life. You are programming. It is garbage in, garbage out. It is what you put there. It is what you say is important that your child would absorb. So if you say books are, if you say knowledge is, if you say broadening their knowledge, if you say understanding all of these things are important, then let your environment depict this. Let your environment hold this. I've shared how our son did not read a fiction book. He totally refused. I told you, I bought his first set of books when he was 6 months. I was 6 months pregnant. So you can say that I read for our son from the moment I was strong enough after I left the hospital. It was, yeah. From the moment we were home and we were comfortable at home, I read to him. But I read for 6 straight years, and they were fiction books I was reading. Of course, there were stories, Rampuskinsky, Cinderella. It was all of those books. I read all of those beautiful, stories that they can relate to. I read those stories. But our son will not pick one to read on his own. He will pick them and he will bring and he say, Mommy, read this to me. So I read aloud to him for the longest time. But the moment we introduced encyclopedias, so my husband is into encyclopedia. Okay, his father bought him encyclopedia. So our son's first encyclopedia was an encyclopedia that belonged to his dad that he had when he was about 10 or thereabouts. So we saw that he gravitated more towards encyclopedias and science and all of that. He wanted to know why. All right. So we kept on enriching his library. Right now, he actually passed on, I think, 5 or 6 encyclopedias to his sister, of course, when he outgrew them. Right. So he was that kind of person. So we did a lot of, and then I worked in a school at the time was about living books. So they would take living books, stories that children can relate to. All right, they would take, and we had had copies of those books, right? A book that would tell you about fish and would tell you everything about fish. Do you understand? Would tell you everything about fish, like the whole thing about fish, deep knowledge and all of that. So by the time I saw that he liked encyclopedia. He wanted to know why cars moved the way they moved. He wanted to know the size of the cars, the size of the engine. He wanted to know about he wanted to know about birds. He wanted to know about plants and all of that. So I started bringing some of those books from school, from my classroom. I'll bring it and I would see how engrossed he was, So that was it. Those were the books that he read. Those were the books that he read all the time. He would not pick a Cinderella story or any of those stories to read. But I wanted him to read everything. I wanted him to broaden his mind. I wanted him to see, to go to places, in his mind. I wanted him to be excited about stories, about living happily ever after. I wanted him to be, I didn't want him to be a one-sided kind of person. So I kept, and then of course, when I read the books to him, he enjoyed the stories, but he just wouldn't pick a fiction book, and read on his own until he was 7. It was at age 7 that our son picked 6 going on 7. 7. Yeah, it was the summer of the year that he turned 7. That was when he picked a book, okay, and read on his own. Not was 7. That's when he picked a book and read on his own. Do you know how he picked that book and read on his own? I found, I stumbled on a book challenge. Yes. I stumbled on a book challenge, and it was a bit tedious at the time because I had to go. I would drive to the library. I would pick there were specific books. I would pick those specific books. I would bring the books home. You will have to read one book in a day, like it was a 30-book day books challenge. Now, before the challenge, I had brought in a book by Geronimo Stilton, and I'd thrown it, and I said, it looks like a nice book, read. Because Geronimo Stilton books had the character, a rat, right? Or something like that, a rat or a rabbit, as a mouse as the character. And since he loved to read, about animals and things like that, I thought that could intrigue him because he had a mouse and all of that. He looked at it, and then he dumped that book somewhere. Right? He dumped that book somewhere. And according to him, okay, one of those days I was cleaning up and I found the book while I was cleaning up. And I'm like, oh, what happened? Have you read this book? And he's like, no, I haven't, and all of that. I'm like, you should read it and tell me about it. And so that was when he took that book for the first time. He read, and somehow he read and finished that book, and he liked it. So he read and he finished that book and he liked it. I'm like, do you like it? And he's like, yeah, not bad. It's okay. And I said, there's a book challenge. Do you want? And he's like, okay. So he agreed to the book challenge. And that's how we got into that book challenge, where he had to read more of fiction books in that challenge. And then he went on. So talk about a child consistently. I knew that he had read that one book, but I also knew that there was a way to keep him there, right? If we can be consistent and keep him there for long. You know how they say, if you can do a habit for 21 days, all right, it will stay in. Yeah. We can argue that, but basically we can't argue the fact that consistency births, habit. So that's it. We stayed in there, and that was it. After that book challenge, the rest was history. He will pick any book. He would pick fiction books, and started reading. It was later when we introduced him to a mentor. He had his first mentor later, on in his 7th year before he turned 8. So with his mentor, they would talk about lots of things, and they started talking about self-development and all of that. And his mentor introduced a book that they were going to read and share together. All right, so she introduced Fela Durotoye's 17 Secrets of High Flying Students. I remember our son was 7 at the time. And so they started reading that book, and I would be in the kitchen and I would hear them reviewing the book. They would talk, and he's there giving her points and all of that. And I'm like, wow, who would have thought? I wouldn't have thought that he was ready for non-fiction books, like self-development books. And that's it. After they finished, that's it. That category of book or genre of book came into our library also. And this is how we were able to equip him. Now he will pick any book at all, and he will read, whether it's a fiction book, provided it appeals to him, or it's a self-development book, or it's a book on, learning a skill, whatever it is. So, dear parents, if you would raise a child who would love to read, I said to someone the other day, I have not sat down to study with our son since year 4, because they become independent learners by age 4. By the time they are in year 4. That's how we work it. We support you. And then by the time you're 4, you should be independent as a learner already. And we can put that time and we can do that time because we have already built the foundation for learning. So no, we don't do lesson teachers. We don't bring in anybody to come and make our children read. We don't have to. Sometimes I talk to people or I have friends, and they'll be like, "Oh no, it's because you're a teacher. You can." No, I'm a teacher, but I don't do no teacher with him. I'm not necessarily his teacher in that way. I am more about teaching skills, the accompaniment skills, because I know that the grades in school are simply the fruits of the real skills that you teach your children. I know this. I know that if your child learns to be resilient, if your child is hardworking, if your child is hardworking, your child is resilient. If your child is disciplined, if your child has self-control, if your child knows how to get up and go and why he needs to wake up in the morning and go, if your child knows how to be committed to whatever commitments they have, if your child is a leader, if your child knows how to navigate, then the child will know when to tell himself to sit and study. If your child already knows how to interact with books, your child understands research skills because you have learned and you have done researches because you were trying to figure out things or give them reasons why. Tell them the why behind everything. And in trying to teach them and tell them the why, you are doing lots and lots of research. My son doesn't even do as much research as his 9-year-old daughter. Before you finish talking, our daughter will say, "Give me a minute, let me figure it, let me find out about it." She's right there researching and all of that. A lot of time you're having a conversation with her and she will tell you, "Oh, okay, no. I read about that, I saw that. And the other day I was researching and I found out that this, it's endless. I found out this, I found out that. I found out this, I found out that." Now, this is my forte. I am more about you keeping the routine. So the people who live in my home know that if you want to mess with me, is come and mess with my routines. If you want to mess with me, come and make or trivialize the routines that I have in my home. We will fight. So if you want peace, just come in, find out what it is, what structure we have here, what routines, and just glide into it. Let's be going, and we will be friends. Don't mess with my routines because that is where the results are. So recently, our son wrote a series of exams, and all of that. And at the time he was writing the exam, he will come back, he has to cook. We have to eat now. Someone asked one day, "I thought you said he was writing exam. Why is he in the kitchen?" I said, I joked and I said, because he has to eat food to read. He has to read food to study now. If you don't have food in your stomach, can you study? So at different point, it was a case of, "Oh, should I let him? Why am I?" We will cook, we will eat. What time? How long does it take to make a meal? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour. In a 24-hour day, at least in a 12-hour active day. How many hours you want to read now? How many hours are you reading for? So sometimes we save and we bail our children out and we come up with all of these excuses. "Oh, let the child read, leave him alone." We do all of these things when the truth about it is results, scores, all of those things are fruits. So even when the children do not do well in school for any reason that hardly is, when the grade steps down a little, I just say to myself, there is something wrong with how the child is studying, or there's something wrong with what the child does when the child is supposed to be studying, because of course their routine is not aligning. So I'm looking at, okay, is that something that is taken away from the time you're supposed to do this? That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the process. I'm not looking at the scores. No. So no, we don't go to school and our children have done well, and when we turn to them in front of the teacher, "You see yourself, hey, you should be ashamed." No, I have never used the phrase, "The people that had 80 or the people that had 100, do they have 2 heads?" I've never used that phrase because I know it's a limiting phrase. It is a limiting phrase. There's no need. Let's do the process and the fruits will shine. And one of that process is get your children to love reading for leisure. Nothing is chasing them. No exam is the matter. They just want to read to enjoy themselves. Get them into that place. And we are, you're on the path to raising children who will succeed. Because the results are coming in and I can fold my hands and I can smile and I can laugh. You could sit them down, you'll be like, oh, what happened? Yeah, this one did not really. No, I'm just folding my hands and I'm laughing because I know that the results that are coming or the results that he is getting is not necessarily because of how many hours he studied. It's more about the process, the discipline, and the habits that he has built. And that is what we are talking about. All right, parents? Okay, so let's move on. The next one is involve the family. All right, we're looking at reading home. Reading home. Involve the family. When I said we have a system where the children will review the book or the research that they've done. You review, I mean, you finish reading, you finish doing the research, or I put it together. Our daughter loves to create PowerPoints. She just loves. Recently, they had a presentation in school, the end of year presentation for all that they've done in school. And the PowerPoint that was used for her presentation, she created herself and all of that. In fact, the information for her presentation, nothing, it wasn't given to her by her teacher. She actually put the presentation for science, all she's learned in physical science, I think. She put the information together by herself, such that even in school, she had to do it with a partner. Or basically, they went with her research and her PowerPoint. When we empower our children, when we put them in that space, they will take, I mean, just do your work and put them in that space. The children will run the rest of the length on their own. Your job is to create the right foundation. But if you continue to say parenting is not learned, there is no manual, and they will figure it out. Oh, me, who taught me? Did I not turn out right? You will be leaving so many gaps in your children. You will be limiting your children. So rather than raise lions, you will be raising lambs, just because you did not harness the potential. We're not saying do things for your children. We're saying put them on that space, lead them. Okay, lead them, and they will finish the rest on their own. That's what I'm saying. You must do the work. A lot of times when you see parents argue and say, come with all of this funny talks and talk about who taught me, there's no manual. Most times it's just excuse for lazy. I mean, let's not use the word. It's just excuse for not wanting to go the extra length for your child. It's just excuse for not wanting to do the job, to do the work. We feel that work has to be done only for the man who has employed us, the person who pays us money. We feel work has to be done only for the business that pays us money. That's it. So when it has to do with working or investing into the life of a human being, especially the one that you have been given custody of, the one that God will ask you, what did you do with them? We don't think we should do more. We just want to pay school fees, get lesson teacher to teach them whatever small thing the lesson teacher has in his head, basically, and then you move on. You just want people to feed your child with a curriculum, and that's about it. Feed them with a curriculum that makes them know math and science and English straight way, in the straight way, straight jacket way. Just define and do the concepts and get the grades. No wonder we use our children's academic performance to measure who they are or how intelligent they are. When in actual sense, your child's grades are not a true test of your child's ability. Let's get this. All right, let's go. We have just 2 minutes. Let's rush with what we have left. Okay, involve the family. So when you have those presentations, make some snacks, sit down. Dad is there, mom is there, everybody's there. Let the child do the presentation. Hail them, their efforts. Hail the efforts, clap for them. Make it a big deal. If it's a big deal for you, it will be a big deal for the child. Dear fathers, I beg you, do you know what pump you give your child if as a father you are involved and you are interested in this thing? If your child, if your wife, if a woman, if mothers can help the child go, say, 30% or 40%, every time they show up for the child, I promise you, you'll help the child go 100% 2 times by showing up as a father. The effects, the resultant effects are far too many. right? The effect of a father's presence or a father's engagement, a father's interest in the child's journey, it brings multiple. The results are in multiples. If only you know what you carry as a father. Same thing with your blessing. If only you know the gravity of your blessing as a father. But alas, we want to argue and throw all of this away just because we pay school fees and we buy food. May the Lord help us. All right, the next one is no distractions. All right, create a cozy little corner in your home. I talked about the stop and read, create the stop and read system. Charge for me. Create a stop and read system where everything is shut down. The children can say they focus on reading the book, no distraction. Have a cozy little corner. We're going to be creating that in the book reading challenge. We're going to be creating a lovely cozy corner. My daughter says that is one of her best parts of the reading challenge, where she can create their creative, light up her cozy corner, and all of that. Beautiful, beautiful experience. And you can do this and bond and do this together as a family. So that way, the children, it would actually become a motivation, right? Because they want to go to the cozy corner with all the teddy bears and all the beautiful things. You see them carry a book. I'm going to read in the cozy corner. So for the 1 month or 2 months that we have the cozy corner every August, the children are usually very excited. Our son is 14 now, but he still goes to that cozy corner and reads a book and sleeps off there sometimes. So it's just a pretty thing that you do. Just engage them, and the rest is history. Go to the library, create a system where you go to the library, they can search for books, they can see thousands of books. If you go to a new city, especially if you're from this part of the world where we have destroyed reading habits and reading culture, we don't even have standard libraries, public libraries at least, and you happen to find yourself in a city where there is one, please let your children go have the experience. But even ask around your city, you will be shocked. People are beginning to come up with all these things. Ask around your city and go and have your child have the library experience. Let them see tons and tons and many, many books around them. Let them read books. Let them see books. Let them understand that there is an importance that is placed on books. Because in your house, the importance is placed on tomatoes. The importance is placed on gadgets. So they come into your home. Everybody has iPhone, this, iPhone, that. All the conversation in your house is iPhone, iPhone, iPhone. When you want to talk about what is a big deal, is which iPhone, because these are the conversations in your home. That is why these are the things that fill the brains of your child, basically. In your home, because it is what music every time playing in your home. It is not the video, it is this one. If it's not that one, that's why the only problem that your child has is how to put a ring light and twerk. Basically that's their only, because it is what you give energy that will grow. I'm not saying don't do what it is that's I'm saying if you put books that way and you put books before your children, the same way your children are twerking with books, with whoever your favorite artists are, this is how your children would actually gum with books, and all of that. So, all right. So you want to do that. Now, if you want to raise a lifelong learner in the 21st century, at a time where technology is doing like this, where only people who are ready to learn will meet the pace or will be able to fit into the pace of where the world is going to. Don't worry, in a few years, you will distinguish between those who know what they are doing. Those who are ready to learn and those who are not ready to learn. It's already happening, right? Yeah. The next one is hype books. Hype books, hype books, hype books. Let them know that books are a thing. Hype books. I say a lot of times when you hear parents say, "Oh, my children would tear the books," it's because your children don't know books. It's because you have not introduced books. It's because your children did not come and meet book right from when they were born. None of my child has torn a book before. No, like Delhi and like a little. They are 1 year old and they take a book and they are tearing. No, it's not happened. If any book gets torn in my home, it's a mistake. Handling, yeah, that kind of thing. Maybe a book a child likes so much, he's constantly picking it, and then it falls, and all of that. It's by mistake. And you will see them trying to put it together, trying to fix it on their own. It is my mistake. But to say, oh, it's 2 years, they are 3 years, so they are just tearing. No, it's because the child does not know the value of books. That's why the child is tearing books. All right. The next one is offer resources everywhere. Yes, in my home, where I'm sitting in this resource room, this is it. There is a library. Let me turn. Huh? That's a whole library right there. If you look up here, that's a whole library of my parenting books right there. If you go to our daughter's room, that's a whole library in there. Our son's space, there's a whole library in there. You go to the living room, there's a major library there. All right, so is your home Prince, rich. Apart from that, we have pictures. We're into arts, So I hope art, art, all of it is a part of reading also. All right. So if you come into our room, you will just know that these people are lovers of books and lovers of art. And art is part of all of it. All right. So make sure that there are resources around, all right, that your children, and then when your children finish reading, let them express this through, the next one we're going to be talking about creativity. Let them express it. We'll come to that. All right, the next one is so I said offer resources, and then the next one is model reading, dear parents. Model reading. Model reading. You they read. So when parents come to me and they say, oh, my child does not like book, the first thing I ask them, do you like to read? All right. Because if you like to read and you model it and it's a part of you, chances are your child will pick this habit from you. But now this is you. You don't like to read as it is right now. We cannot begin to train you and everything. I don't want to say fake it, but I'm saying pick a book. Try to read the book. Don't take big books. Take small books. Read them. Talk about them. Okay? Or better still, pick a book that the children are reading and body read together. Meaning, when the child is reading the book, read the book together. Like you can read a paragraph, the child reads a paragraph, or the child can read a chapter of the book and then you discuss it. Or other times, the child is you do the reading and then you discuss it. It's a beautiful way to read aloud, to enjoy reading and bonding together, and of course, to get your child to read more because you are involved. When our son was reading Maintain Your White by Auntie Atima, okay, we read that book together because it was a book on sex education and all of that. And he read it when he was in year 6 or 7. He read it when he was about 11 or 12, right? So when he was reading, we read the book together because, of course, I needed to throw in perspective, and all of that. We just read it like a novel. We read it like that, and then of course he was ready for some level of sex education that I couldn't give him, but the men, had to give. Do you understand? But as far as the book was concerned, we could read and we could have conversation. And see, today I can have sex conversation with our son because the foundation for that conversation has been laid. Very, very key. All right. The same thing when we're reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. We read Rich Dad Poor Dad together. All right. He read part of it even with his dad. While we're driving to school, we're driving and he's reading. And when he's finished reading a part of it, he shuts it, closes it, and then we talk about it. We share perspective on it, and all of that. And that's it. So you can do shared reading. And then the final one is encourage creativity. Role play the books that you read. When they read books, put it into an act. We're going to be doing a lot of role play during the book challenge. So get in. If you have children between 0 and 13, it is so cheap. The book challenge is not even pizza money. The book challenge is meat pie money. Yes, that's what it is. It is that cheap. Get into your child into the book challenge. All right. Start by getting into the wait list before we will open up, the opportunity for us to have that discount. The book challenge is actually worth 10,000 naira. But no, when you get into the list, your wait list, you're going to get it for far, far cheaper than that, especially if you are able to get in when we have the early bird, right? The extra early bird for the early bird challengers. Basically, you can key in and you get it for chinkany money. All right. Yet we're going to be with the child. We're going to be with your family for a whole 30 days. So this tells you that it's really not really about, how much you are paying. It's about the fact that this skill is so close to my heart and I want as many families to have this, as many children to get to the place where this skill becomes a thing for them. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode. If you would like to be a part of the challenge, you will see the information that you need scrolling right now, and you see it in the comments. All right, just click the link and join the group. And if you would like to be a part of the mastermind circle, our pair mentorship and accountability group, that amazing place where we are raising giants, where we're raising children who can direct themselves, where we're raising children who are not even reading moi books anymore, children who are reading books, children who are challenging themselves to read. Some of my mastermind children for the last quarter, for this quarter, from June till August, are actually reading 20 books. Some of them challenged themselves to 12 books, 13 books, 15 books, 20 books. That's what we're talking about. We're not doing small thing anymore. And we're not saying reading book that you don't know. We're talking about reading books that the children get to review after reading. So yes, if you would like to be a part of the mastermind circle, why don't you go ahead? Sorry, I have the wrong information. So you can go ahead and take a screenshot of what you have on your screen right now to join our next cohort that begins on the 1st of September. The next cohort of the mastermind begins on the 1st of September, and you want to be a part of it by registering your child. Book a slot with just 5,000 naira, and you can pay off before September 1st. The mastermind does not take too many people. We have a restricted number, and that's because the mastermind is a foundation program. So we can't afford to have too many people that will take away the close accountability. So if you don't book a slot right now, you may be ready and we will tell you the slots have been taken. So why don't you go ahead and book a slot today? Thank you very much for being here. I do not take it for granted that you allow me to be a part of your parenting journey. Go ahead and use the information on the screen grab it and use it to register for the mastermind circle. And of course, if you like to be a part of the challenge, check for the information or the link in the description on YouTube or in the comments on Facebook. Click on it and you'll find yourself in a room with other parents or in a group with other parents on WhatsApp where we will be taking off from. Thank you very much again. Have a fantastic week ahead and have a blessed day. Bye.